The notice of election for Wallingford Town Council by-election has been uploaded this morning onto the S.O.D.C election website. I had expected the nomination pack to be uploaded too, but all I can see is the notice. I did find, though, that the nomination form for parish councils is available on the Electoral Commission website. So I have downloaded that and I've put together a video showing how to complete the form. I am going to caveat the rest of the content of this video by saying I've put this together to the best of my knowledge based on my experience of completing the form last year and rereading through the instructions and guidance on the pack. If there's any kind of dispute or contradiction between what I'm saying and the guidance you're getting elsewhere, then please double check it. The most likely team there to give the best guidance would be the South Oxford District Council elections team, and their contact details will be in the description. And I will stress again that when you go to drop off your form, there is the chance to get your form looked over. So I would take that opportunity. They are the ones who know what's best really in this circumstance. So yeah, please take that opportunity. But putting all of that to one side, please strap yourself in for a riveting step-by-step guide on how to fill in the nomination form to stand in Wallingford Town Council's upcoming by-election. So this is the start of the nomination pack, and it highlights which areas need to be completed. Section 2 and Section 3 there don't strictly need to be completed in order to put yourself forward to be nominated for election. Those relate to if you'd like to align yourself with a specific political party, and there's set rules on that. We'll touch on that towards the end of this video, but primary focus is going to be on Section 1 here, because that's the bit you have to get done. You'll notice there that the forms or the papers need to be returned back to the returning officer, and we covered the when and where of that in the previous video. So I'd recommend checking that out to clarify that if you need that information. And finally, just their confirmation at the bottom that the forms that you need to submit must be the original signed versions. They cannot be copies. So now we're down into Section 1A, which is the start of the nomination paper proper. The first line underneath that, the boxes that say date received, time received, initials, number, etc., those are for the S.O.D.C elections team. Just leave them blank. Coming down a couple of lines, and you've got a blank section there next to ward of the, if applicable. We don't have wards in Wallingford. In certain areas, they split the parish down into different sections or wards, and people can test the individual wards themselves. That's not something that we do. Now, it does say to delete whichever is inappropriate on the line beneath this. Personally, I'd leave that blank. It may well be that they do want it deleted, but it's a lot easier to leave it blank and then delete it when you're at the actual at Abbey House submitting your form than to do the other way around. So personally, yeah, I would just leave that blank for the moment. Parish of, pretty simple, just Wallingford. Don't need to put anything else. It's that simple. Date of election, 22nd of February 2024. Moving down a little bit further, we're going into your details. So you've got candidate's surname. Unsurprisingly, just put your surname. And other forenames in full. So you should put details of any other forenames that you've got, including middle names. Titles, there you've got the bit Mr., Mrs., etc. That doesn't actually appear on the ballot paper. It's not actually that critical. And also any other prefaces like sir or suffixes like senior, just, there's no need to put them. In fact, you shouldn't put them. It's not helpful in this scenario. Beneath that, you've got commonly used surname and commonly used forenames. Now, it isn't uncommon that people will be known by a name that is different than's on their birth certificate, for example, or their passport. And this is an option for you to put that. You still have to put your actual name, surname and full name above that, but under the commonly used section you can put down what else you're known as. Now, there are certain rules about that, and there's some extra guidance to that, and I'll post that with the description of this as well, because yeah, you want to make sure you get that done correctly. Description at the bottom then of that section, you'll note you're allowed up to 6 words. Not a lot, but it's an option for you to add in some extra information. I mean, the examples they give on the guidance is things like farmer, baker in the high street, or member of village action team, etc. For me personally, when we go down into the address section a bit further, I took the option not to have my address shown on my nomination, but I wanted people to know that I was a Wallingford resident. So I used that section to put independent Wallingford resident, therefore allowing people to have that information without giving out in detail my personal address details. So what you use that for, it's up to you. The only exception to that is if you are aligning yourself with a political party, there are some things that actually have to be put into that. And again, there's more guidance of that later on in the form. So the final section there is the nomination section. You need a proposer and you need a seconder. And these need to be members of the public that are registered to vote within the parish of Wallingford. You need a signature from both, and you need them to print their name. The guidance suggests it's preferably in capitals, but to be honest with you, that's not essential. The key thing is that it is legible and they can cross-reference it against the electoral register. Finally, then, the electoral number, and I wouldn't worry too much if you're thinking, well, how on earth would you find that? It's not surprising. It's not something you typically need to know, need to have, but there are ways to provide that. So firstly, if you reach out to the team in the town council offices, and I'll pop their details in the description, they should be able to find it. Alternatively, you can contact the S.O.D.C electoral team, and again, I'll pop their details into the description. And actually, if I remember correctly, and I'm thinking back to the elections we held in May last year, there were people who turned up without knowing those electoral numbers, and the team that were there when they were checking away through the form were able to cross-reference it against the register. So there are multiple ways there to find that out. It's not as complicated as you might fear. And that's the end of section 1A. We'll move now into 1B, the home address form. The first section of that is identical to 1A, so we'll leave that for the moment, ignore that. And we'll move down instead into 1B, part 1. Now this has to be completed by all candidates. First section there, just need to put in your full name. That's not the also known as bit, that's your actual name as shown in your passport, etc. Home address in full, and it's important here not to use abbreviations for like RD for road or Oxon instead of Oxfordshire. They want it written out fully, properly in that section. We covered in a previous video the criteria to stand, and if you've watched that video, you'll recognize these four criteria. You don't have to satisfy all of them. The key thing is you satisfy at least one of them. Though if more than one applies, you can tick as many as are relevant. And you put down the address there that matches that criteria. Now, for some of this will be the same as your home address. For example, if you're looking at D there, if you've resided in the parish, chances are your home address is going to be the same as the address that you resided in the parish. However, if you live outside of the parish, but looking at C, you've worked within the parish over the previous 12 months, then obviously that address would be different. The key thing is that the addresses you put down are completed in full, and that it's clear, it's legible, and meets the criteria as set down. The final part then, or the final section of part 1, is a witness. Now you need the full name of someone who's willing to witness your consent to nomination, and you need their full home address, and again that should be completed in full. There's no restrictions as to who that witness is, and it does not have to be the proposer or seconder. They will need to sign something later on in 1C when we get down to that. But yeah, it can be pretty much anyone who can be the witness for that section. So part 2 of 1B, you do not have to complete. You have an option basically. When your details are put forward showing that you are standing, either your full address will be showing on there or it won't. Now, as part of that, you have to show that you meet the criteria, and that's what this section is for. So I did this last year. I didn't want my full address to be showing on the notice, and so I filled in this part 2. It's relatively straightforward. All you need is to put in the relevant area. Now, for ourselves, being in South Oxfordshire District Council, the relevant area is simply South Oxfordshire. You do not put in the parish, so you don't put in Wallingford or anything else. All you need to put is the relevant area. My home address is situated in South Oxfordshire. You do have the option there, just below that your home address is situated outside the UK. That's not something I'm particularly au fait with, and I'd seek further guidance on that because I don't know enough about that. It's not something that I'm aware of any of the other candidates having relevance over or experience with. Sorry, that's probably a better way of putting it. And then the candidate, i.e. you, need to sign and date that section. So as I said, part 1 of 1B you have to do. Part 2 you don't have to. I did. I think the majority of people actually did. And as I indicated, looking back at 1A, there is a way with those 6 words to indicate, to show that you are a Wallingford resident, if that's applicable, or that you are local to the area without necessarily showing your address. So to finish off section 1 of the nomination form, we move into 1C, candidates' consent to nomination. Again, leave the top boxes blank. That's for the S.O.D.C election team. So leave them blank, and they will deal with that. We kick off from date of election. That's 22nd of February 2024. You need to put your name in full, and that's your actual name. Again, not your commonly used name. That's your actual name in full, including middle names, etc. Hereby consent to my nomination as a candidate for election as councillor for the, and again, we do not have wards. Personally, I would leave that blank, but I would double check that with the team when you drop your form off, in case you need to strike that through or put a not applicable. Of the parish of, and again, that is Wallingford. There's a declaration there that confirms your ability to stand, predominantly looking at your citizenship and your age. And then we've got those 4 criteria again. Now at this point, you should strike through any that do not apply. So when we looked at this in 1B, we had the different addresses that you could put against the criteria. Whichever ones that you put an address against, you should not strike through. Any that you left blank, here you should strike them through. So it makes it very clear as to what is the criteria that you are looking to rely on as you submit your nomination. You then have the declaration, quite an important one, just to confirm that you are not disqualified for being elected. You then pop in your date of birth, you sign in the signature box, and you put the date of consent, i.e. the date that you are completing the form. Finally then, you've got the witness. This is the witness who completed 1B part 1 earlier. They need to print their name in full and they need to sign it. If you've reached that point, you have completed all the paperwork that you have to complete. That's the whole of section 1. So we mentioned earlier about sections 2 and 3. Again, this is not an area I have a great deal of knowledge for because it's not a route that I chose to go down. My personal opinion, while you are entitled to align yourself with a political party and to utilise their resources and so on and so forth, in my experience, political parties getting involved at this level isn't particularly helpful. But you do have the right to do that, and in section 2 here, it talks about what you need to do in order to satisfy the criteria, and then section 3 for use of the party emblem. And again, those 2 forms need to be completed. As I say, that's entirely up to you. I don't see the benefit, and in fact, I can see it just causing more confusion, more hassles, so on and so forth. But that's your choice. If you followed this video through, completed the form, got your proposer, seconder, witnesses, got everything completed and you're happy, the next step is to get up and head over to Abingdon, to Abbey House, and drop off your nomination forms to the returning officer and their team. I know I've said it multiple times before, but I really would stress it's worth sticking around. It shouldn't take too long, and get them to double check your form, make sure it's fit for purpose. It could save you a lot of hassle if it turns out not to be. So yeah, that's what I recommend you head off and do. What happens next? Well, it's a bit of a waiting game, really. We have to wait till January the 29th, at which point we'll find out how many people are standing, and we'll see where things go from there. Take care. Bye.